Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel, Art Classes My Way. And this is a beginner's video, so to show you probably what you're going to need, and I say probably one or two of these tools may or may not be used. I do tend to make a lot of my projects on the fly. I don't pre-make them. That way you guys can kind of see the artistic process as you go. Not everything has to be all the time planned out, and sometimes just letting a piece be and letting it tell you what it wants to be first, you have a lot less arguments with your art project. That's at least the school that I subscribe to. Now, just because I say that does not, just experiment and go out and, just let it tell you. A lot of that, it also comes from the fact that I have a lot of experience doing these kinds of projects, doing these kinds of things, where there's been a saying that I've always loved that is, learn the rules first so you know how to break them like a pro. And you naughty girl, no. Well, no, can't have it. So here's what we're pretty much going to need for the project. For starters, you will need an art cat, because you can't make it too easy on yourself. You need something to steal your projects from you, right? That's what I thought. Alright, back to this. You can't have that. Leave it. So what we are pretty much going to need now, this guy is full of copper beads, and that's pretty much all that's in here. I got like 2-3 different kinds of beads. I also got some crimps, some print covers. Mostly what I want this for is the beads themselves. You can look at the door all you want, you ain't getting that. We are not a belly cat. The belly's a lie. More jump rings. We also will need our stone. Now we're going to be doing a square stone. It's been requested quite a bit. This is a lapilite. There's a Z in there somewhere. I'm really not sure how to say it because I've never really heard anybody speak it before. But I'll put it up on the screen, what it is, the spelling. But that's what we're going to be using. And we're going to be using the square stone. And it has a little bit more rounded edge, which makes it a little bit different than the rectangular or square stone that I've used in the past. We also have some brass wire. It's aged wire. This guy is going to be 24. I might regret using something so large. And then we got 16 gauge wire, just copper. That way we get some variation in our colors. Round nose, square nose, which I need to retape that. Your nippers or your cutters, whatever you want to call them. I call them nippers. And a hopper. And the artist tool of choice, masking tape. This stuff is great. Now, you don't want to use something like duct tape or anything like that, because duct tape is way too sticky and it wants to stay, and it can warp your wire trying to take it off, or it might not want to come off. And the sticky stuff, in my findings, a lot of times it just wants to stick to your stone. I like this stuff. It's just sticky enough without being too sticky. It's great. It's just Scotch brand, whatever. And then you are going to need the cord. And of course, I have pre-made this. If you want to know how to make your own necklace cord, you can always go to my video. It's one of the first videos I made, making your own S-class. So you can always go and check that video out. There's a fuzzball on the screen. Let's ignore it. And I have this guy pretty much already pre-made, and this is where you're going to want to have your bench block, so that way you can hammer this in to work harden it. Maybe even give it a little bit of a different feel, so that way it's not round wire all the way around. Maybe just flatten it just a little bit. And you're also going to want to do the same to this guy. This is all made out of this 16 gauge wire. So let's get started with the project, shall we? Sam. Well, that's not what I gave you permission to do. We are going to be starting with this little square stone here. Now, he is taller on this side than he is on this side, but he's just a cheap little stone that I ended up getting a hold of. And, you can't ask for, much better than when it's darn near free as it is, so no complaints. And I've got myself some 16 gauge wire here, and that's what I'm going to be using. Now, I want to make sure I give myself a lot of extra for decorative elements. I've been kind of like evolving this idea in my head, and it's just getting bigger and grander, and I'm going to need quite a bit of extra wire, and I'm probably going to end up even attaching more base wires as I go. So obviously, normally what you would do is take some masking tape, like this guy here. Actually, I got some scrap over here. And what you can do if you want something that's a little bit more subtle and understated, you would take your masking tape, put it around the edge of your piece, like so, And then from here you can mark, as I can see that this part here meets up right around here. I can mark this, untape your piece, and where you marked it, now you know exactly how much wire you have and use this as a measuring tool. I don't like measuring tools because I'm hard-headed, and that's really all there is to it. I'm just flat out stubborn and hard-headed, and I don't know where my projects are going to end up going by the time I'm done. There are occasions where I write down and maybe draw my idea, mostly when I can't actually work with the piece and I have ideas in my head and I need to put them down before I forget about them. That's normally when that happens, and that happens when I'm really bored. But this guy, it's going to be quite a bit longer, and I'm thinking I'm going to need at least 4 wires for this. So I'm going to say probably not that much either side, thereabouts. Let's see if I can't just snag 4 out of that. And what's left of this stuff. Probably get 3, and then I'll have to open up a fresh new thing. Now, one's going to end up being slightly longer than the others here, as you can see. I'm not going to worry about it. There we go. No point in cutting that off again. I don't know where this is going to go, and it could end up that I'm going to need every bit of that, so that's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is opening up a fresh thing of wire. Big spool. Honestly, try to keep from opening up all this plastic as long as possible myself. And that way it'll stay nice and neat and don't have to worry about it unraveling and getting everywhere. But best laid plans. I just ordered this stuff new. Never really worked with it before. Alright. Now this piece that I just cut off of that spool is trying to feel how springy he is and try to see if he's more work hardened, because I've never been with this company before. I've never ordered from this company before, and I'm trying to compare it to what I'm used to working with. Yeah, this guy's a little bit more work hardened than this stuff, so it's just something to keep in mind. I can always torch it to soften him up a little bit, but just to save myself some work and some effort, I'm going to put him on the inside of the weave, and the weave that I have planned, the 2 wires on the inside are going to get covered more than the 2 wires on the outside, so I won't have to worry about that too terribly much. What I do need to do from here is find the middle. Now these 3 wires are all the same length, so I'll just get them all even with themselves and kind of fold them here. Now I know where the middle ought to be. There. Now this wire that ended up being longer overall, just find his middle by himself. I'm just pretty much bringing the 2 ends together and just slowly kind of flattening, and you can see that I'm getting a bit of a bottom out here, so that's where the middle is. Now I know where that is. I'm going to arrange these wires. I think I'm going to make him also a middle wire along with this guy, and then my 2 really nice, pristine, but shorter pieces, I will make them my outer wires. And then I'm going to take a piece of masking tape, and I'm going to tape one side together. That makes it overall easy to weave the whole piece. And you're going to want to make sure that all your wires are nice and close together. You don't want to have any gaps, major gaps in between the wires. These guys to behave themselves for me. Sorry if I'm out of frame, but so I'm going to take this, wrap around, and if you want to go kind of like down the wires, that's fine. That's going to give you more stability. Or if you just want to wrap it around just one area nice and tight, that's fine too. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay. Now I can straighten these guys all back out. Good enough. Now for all you beginners out there, wire weaving, when you're just starting, it hurts your fingers, it hurts your joints, it hurts your hands. You just got to build up the muscle strength. It's just like exercising for the first time in years. You're going to get sore. Same concept there. So now I'm going to take this wire that I've got. It's a 24 gauge wire, antique brass color over a copper wire. So this is not actual brass. I do have some brass wire. I've been thinking about playing around with it. I definitely have never seen it in any of our craft stores. But, oh well. Where I am going to start off, it doesn't much matter in the beginning. Now my two middlemost wires here, spread these out so you can see. These two guys, I'm pretty much going to have them completely covered by the time I'm done. It is just going to be one solid brass mass going up this way. These guys, I'm going to do a little bit of wire weaving to them, not a whole lot. I want to be able to leave myself enough room and enough space to add on to or to sew down to other things. So it's going to be, it can end up being a big project and being a whole lot more than I ever intended, but I do that. I go overboard quite often. So I want to make sure I have enough tail here, and that's not enough. There we go, a good amount. So that way, once I get started and done weaving going this direction, once I take this tape off, all that weaving is going to hold it nice and still and beautifully. Then I can start weaving this direction with this wire and try to hopefully use up as much as possible. So I'm going to go start with the two middle wires. I'm going to go around, I think, 1, 2, and 3 times around. And it's sliding underneath the tape here. That's fine, whatever. Now I'm going to go up. I'm going to go around my outermost wire. I'm going to go around it again, come down to the middle wire. And be careful you don't weave too tight. Otherwise, it'll get hard once you've gone a certain distance. It gets hard to get this to line up and get down in there where you want it to be. You gotta leave enough room in between your wires to get that wire to go in there. And go around to the next one and around the next one. Hold tight. And if you want to, you can always get your square nose, lightly grabbing a hold and sliding downwards to get them to maybe line up just a little nicer. If you're doing that with the square nose, if you're leaving tool marks while you're doing that, you are doing something wrong. You should not be squeezing that hard. If you have to squeeze the square nose that hard to get these to slide down, then, especially at this point, we only just started, you need to probably unweave your whole wire, or at least unweave it to where it starts to get loose again, and then redo it, because you are just setting yourself up for all kinds of heartbreak. But we got a nice little kind of rope effect going on there. Now we're going to come back around. And there we go, around this outermost middle wire. Alright, we just went around this guy the second time. Now what I had originally done when I spanned all the way over to this outermost edge, I had actually encompassed all 3 wires. I want it to be the same, so I'm going to go all the way around to this last most inner wire here. Alright. I want to make sure I pull that tight. This is some hard wire. Shimmy on down, shimmy, shimmy. Alright, and we're going to go just around the inner 2 wires. Now, I like to use specific numbers when I'm weaving, and by that I mean, like, if I'm going to go for a long distance before I do another fancy weave again, I'll try to choose a certain set of numbers, specific numbers. Mostly they're numbers that have meaning to me. 7s have significant meanings to me. 3 and 13 have significant meanings to me. Positive meanings. I know a lot of people don't have positive meanings to the number 13, but I was born on Friday the 13th, and most people would think I'm a very unlucky person. Actually, I feel I am quite lucky and quite fortunate, so I don't feel it's that much of a bad number. And I try to use numbers like that in my weaves. I mean, it sounds completely silly, but as like a positive way of like, for instance, giving luck to somebody or wishing them the best of luck by using my favorite numbers. So I think I'm going to try going around just these middle 2 wires. I think I'll do a 7, considering how thick this wire is, this 24 gauge. We'll go around 7 times. It's going to go a very, very long way. It's going to be a pretty quick weave. So if I did a 13, then the next time we see a spanning piece like this is probably going to be, we'll probably be halfway around the stone up the sides by then. Now I'm going to go all the way around to the outside, which means 1, 2, 3 wires, all being eaten right there. I'm going to go around that outermost one time, and then I'm going to come in, And we're going to go around to one of the inside wires here, our middlemost wire. Go around him one time. And then we're going to go all the way over to our third wire here. And go around it one time. And then we're going to go all the way around this guy. Go around it one time. Come back around, and now we're going to encompass these 3 wires, because we got to go over 1, 2, 3 wires, so that way we match what we did on the other side here. And just because maybe a weave isn't viewable from both sides at all times, it's still a very good idea to try to keep symmetry. You never know what's going to happen and how a piece could possibly end up evolving on you. So I would recommend trying to keep it same, because so far this is the side I would want to use the most. And as you can see, there's still even though, like, as we go up here, that's just because the wires are moving down and around themselves, but in between here, in the beginning, you can see there's a nice little gap here that keeps you from weaving too tightly, and allows you to have plenty of space to be able to continue with your work. Okay, so let's measure what we got against this guy here. We are pretty much right to the middle of this, and that's pretty much right on the corner. So I'm feeling pretty good with that. Now I'm going to make that corner a little bit longer. Instead of being a 7, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm also going to see about possibly scrunching up my weave to this point. A little bit there. Let's see here. Well, let's try 10, and then we'll hold the stone up to it and see how we feel about that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Now let's just go 13 then. If we slide it right about there and make this one the middle, that ought to work out just fine. So what I am trying to eyeball here is what I want to do. The whole solid core of this weave is going to be right at the bottom here. So when we turn this around the corner, about like so, what I want to do is be able to snag this wire, bring it inward so that way it acts like a bezel and holds the corners in. And we'll use other methods of doing that, but just for the time being, that's what I want to do with that there. So I want to make sure I give myself enough space to be able to do that. Now we're just going to do our regular long weave. It's going back and forth here. We're going to go around to the third one. Get these guys a little bit more out of the way here. Wait, there we go. I can find them. And you see, because I got tighter and tighter as I went up those 13, now it's very hard to get this guy to go in. So, let's take a look-see here. And I can get him to lay there with these guys, the square nose, just fine. But again, if you're leaving 2 marks because you're squeezing so hard trying to push this down, then you've just done it too tight, and it's just going to be better for you to start over at that point. So there's 1, around and around. Whoop. Let's get this guy a little bit closer here. He's gone a little off into space. There we go. Come back around to the third wire and go back to wrapping around 7 times. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead on this. Again, I'm just going to be doing the same methods for every corner. I'm going to put a wrap of 13, and so that way I can then take these areas and try to bring them in to catch these corners on this stone here. And this wire is in the middle, and feel free to take your stone and hold it up for your measurements and trying to make sure that everything's where it needs to be. Now I'm going to go up the side. I'm going to do all the weaving for going up the side here and going into the middle part here, and I'll show you how to do that from that point and how to bend this around. But if I'm holding this, and this is the middle, then I rotate it around there, so somewhere around here, and once you get to this corner you need to grab your stone and you need to pay a lot of attention and measure and measure, wrap 2 times, pick up your stone. It's like, okay, am I getting close? Should I, instead of doing 13, maybe I should go ahead and do 14 or 15? Do whatever you need to do to make sure that that corner ends up being right. And again, keeping in mind that this side is longer than this side, for my stone anyway. So the numbers over here are not going to be the same as the numbers over here. So I will see you guys shortly. So I've gotten all the weaving done that I want to get done for the time being in this direction. I'm pretty sure that's going to cover a good chunk of it. So if I always face it in the corner that you mean, direction that you mean to when you have a slightly off shape. Because this corner, this gap here is meant and supposed to be lined up for this corner up here, where this one's shorter. I might not have to do that. Or if I can get away with it, I'll try to get away with it so that way it all looks even. But sometimes that doesn't always happen. But anyway, you can see this guy here in the center, and then I can rotate him. Now his corner lines up with this gap right here, and then rotate him again. And there. Maybe it's a little bit more off this way. But so for now, I've left myself a lot of extra wire, so that way I can use it for whatever I want, or even unweave it if I have to. So now I'm going to get started in this direction. Flip it around and take that tail out of my way. Find the end of my tape and take all this off. So let's just go ahead and continue where I left off here. I just wanted to show you guys real quick. I undid pretty much that whole area, added on, and I wanted to show you now that where this wire ended up ending is pretty much on when I start the longs. It ends pretty much right here in the middle. Great place for it to decide to work and cooperate with me. So what I'm going to do is basically place a little tail right where that wire has ended, and then pick up right where that wire would have left off at. So just wanted to show you that. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this guy finished up. So I'll see you soon in the future. Alright, so now we got our ribbon all done. Oh, that's what that is. So I'm going to start going ahead and bending it around my piece. So I got my fingers, figure out where you want your hole to be and which way you want to be forward, which one you want to be, which side you want to be in the back, in accordance to the ribbon that you just made. So I better turn this around. There we go. But once we get a rough idea of where our corners are going to be, like that, I'm going to go in with my square nose here and give myself some good edges, like so. Yeah. Just a little too narrow. So I'm going to come in here, flatten that edge out. Now you don't want to end up doing that too much, bending it and rotating it and so on. So now I got this guy pretty much in here just by taking the square nose, putting him up against, finding out where it is that I needed to bend, and fold over. Fits in there fairly nicely. So I've decided that instead of continuing on and folding these guys over the top, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. So let's get this tail out of my way here. And let's go ahead and end that on, so that way it looks nice and even with the rest of the weave I've done here. Alright, so now I've pretty much decided I'm going to do this part just a little bit differently. And I'm going to fold this over and this guy over. I'm going to use a square nose to do that, so that way you get nice sharp edges instead of that, what you just saw there, a little bit too rounded for what I want. Fold that over quite a bit more. There we go. There we go. That looks good. Now that we've done this to the front, and I want it to crisscross. And that's going to hold the top in. Flip him over. And I'm going to do the same to the back. Make sure this is all slid down. They do like to slide on you. Now that should hold the top in nice and stable. So I'm going to just kind of fold these guys downwards for now and get them out of my way. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and focus on these top pieces here. And I'm going to go ahead and just continue to wrap these guys. These guys are just going to be the longer pieces that we did here. Just, wrapping the two going up. And I will eventually change that weave, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. I want these two and these two to meet in the middle, so that way I can make the hoop that our necklace would go through, so that way it'll actually hang. And I'm going to just take this kind of, I'll wait to notch these over, but I'm going to go ahead and lay it down across the top. It's almost in the middle. Just a few more wraps here. And just kind of fold it over the top. Now for this side. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this. It's going to be the exact same thing, and when we come back, they're pretty much going to match each other and be touching right in the middle here. So see you soon. So now we've got these guys meeting in the middle, which is going to make for a wonderful bezel type area. I'm going to divide them off. Get your front and your back. We really only need two of them to actually be the part that holds the necklace. Now as far as this guy, I know he's been put together fairly well, because if I try to shake him, this bezel is really holding on to him just by how tightly how tight my corners are and everything. But obviously if you really tried, you could, there we go. With a little bit more effort, you can pop him out, so obviously he's not done anywhere near yet. So, now we're going to work on the top here. And I'm going to go for one of my favorites, and I know you guys have seen it before, but I can't help it. I do favor the webbing style over a lot of other things, so I'm going to go ahead and just take one of my tails and start wrapping. And I'm going to use a weave that is pretty familiar. I used it in my last one. The only difference is that I'm going to go around this guy, and then I'm going to figure 8. I'm going to go around the other side, tighten, and then I'm going to figure 8. Around, figure 8. Whoop. I forgot to figure 8 in the right direction. Need to figure 8 over here. Get that there. Now do keep in mind that once you start really spanning this gap, that you don't pull too tight and end up pulling these guys together. If you want an extreme webbing effect, you really got to be careful that you're not pulling them together when you're tightening. And that's just going to come with practice. Normally what I do is I take my finger and I take my fingernail and I just kind of guide the wire down as I'm pulling it tighter. So that way the wire is getting pulled tight just on this guy by himself. Then I span over and do the same. So that way when I was putting force on it, I'm only putting force on this side and not pulling the two together. And this kind of gives you a wonderful little effect where before, when I've shown you doing a webbing, we just go straight across the front, straight across the back, which gives you a really cool effect. Now by doing the figure 8, instead of going straight across, we're going around to the front here from the back of this one. It gives you a nice interlacing effect. So I'm going to just go ahead and continue on with that, and no real point in forcing you guys to watch me. And it takes a little bit of practice. You can always just get a couple of spare wires and just practice on them before you work on a project like this to make sure you get it looking nice. And there's no shame in that. I had to do it lots before I ever started doing this myself. Yeah, see you soon. Okay, I got that all woven up, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to take my necklace cord here. Now this is going to end up being permanently attached to this cord, so I made it a little bit longer for those who like to have their necklaces dangle a little bit more. And I'm going to take my hopper here and get these wires out of my way. I'm going to start rolling it. There we go. Grab a hold of this guy and pull him upwards. And grab a hold of this one, ring him around, and pull him upwards. A little easier to do with the square nose here, until it gets fairly nice and snug and starts to roll around on himself. Like so. There. And what do I just... Sometimes when you do this, you get these little gaps in the back, so it's a good idea to go ahead and just kind of scooch them back up. That'll give you a little bit more room to possibly even pull a little tighter with the with what you got going on here. Now I like doing this. It gives you a really cool like ram's horn kind of effect. You got this nice rounded cool look going on. I don't know, the goat horns and rams and antelope, I find them kind of fascinating. So the texture that they have to them they're just a lot of fun to contemplate. And we'll bring that just around a little bit more. There we are. And we'll just roll this one just a little bit more like this guy and kind of fold them back and a little bit out of our way. And now we have these two wires to incorporate our necklace piece, the cord, into the overall wire weave project. So that's kind of fun, I feel. So you could finish it off by going ahead and rolling these back a little bit more so that way they're on the back. Give them a little nip, tuck them in nice and tight, and you're pretty much done with this part. Now, if you run into somebody who wants this piece, but maybe they want the cord shorter, they want the cord a little bit longer, make sure you get the cord, if you get it really tight, that you get the cord, you know, in the middle there. Maybe don't get this as tight, so that way, if you need to, you can cut the cord in the middle, pull him through, cut the middle part of the cord out, and then you can use the rest of the cord for something else by folding the ends and making a different segment to it. Let me actually show you what I'm talking about. So here's an example of a necklace piece that I had made. It was more of a choker originally, but the person liked the piece that I had on it, but it was too short for them. They wanted it on something longer. So this is what I ended up doing with the necklace after I cut it out, cut it in the middle, and I just braced those little, turned them, curled them a little bit. I mean, there's multiple ways you could do this. You could just end it the same way that this is ended over here and have a hoop on the end. I just wanted something different. Wonderful alternative. Everything can always be repurposed. And if that were to happen with this piece, somebody actually wants it on something shorter than what I've got it on, and do the exact same thing in a heartbeat. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to leave these guys for more decorative elements this way, and we're going to give up on those, and we're going to start working on the rest of this guy. And get rid of this 3D effect in my face while I'm trying to do this. That's awkward on my end. And I still got this cord here, the weaving wire, to do all kinds of neat decorative elements. And I'm going to start by actually curling this piece. Now I'm holding on to the end of it, and I'm letting pretty much the metal do a lot of the work there, except I want these two to be the other way around. There we go. Get this out of my way, and I'm going to keep rolling him. Bring it up. Flatten that back down. And we got a cool little bezel right there. I'm going to flatten it just a little bit because of our going up and over and everything that I did. And that guy is going to hold that corner in pretty nicely. So, might as well make it look similar. So I'm going to take this piece. Now I could go backwards, or I could go the exact same way, which I think I will go the exact same way. Get these two to flip-flop on me. There we go. I'm going to lay it back down where it ought to be. I'm holding onto the end of the cord and pulling it around. Like so. Go ahead and flatten him down too. Now we got a cool little feature right there. So, might as well do it to the back too, right? At least we won't have these guys to worry about it as much. There we have that. Now, it looks like a great big mess, I know, but we'll get there. So, I like the symmetry that's going on with, especially since this is all in the front here. This is the side I chose to be the front, and these guys look great. So what we can do to kind of cover up, you know, the change that's up here a little bit, we can just go ahead and take these guys and start to wrap them around the top. I want to make sure they're nice and tight. Split these two. I'm going to go ahead and flatten them just a tiny bit. I have a little bit too much 3D effect going on, but that works out nicely. I want to make sure I get these to reflect each other. And I'm going to wrap around to the back. Wrap around to the back. I want them to kind of meet in the middle on the bottom here, because this is where it's going to start holding our stone in, especially on the back here. Now these round kind of medallion corners here that I've got, those are holding him in the top part. And we can even flatten that just a little bit more when we get there anyway. Alright, and I think what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and where they're going to meet in the back here, I'm going to just go ahead and give them a nice little angle, so that way they meet each other kind of like how this top ended up meeting. That's off center. Better. Now I'll sew these two guys together when I get there to that point. And I'm going to have them come around from the bottom. And now to cover up some of these corners just a little bit, I'm going to do basically this curlicue. I'm going to do it in this bottom corner here. And in order to do that, we're going to need tape at this point. Now I want to be careful that as I'm trying to tape this in, that I'm not going to put it someplace that where my wires end up going, that I'm going to pretty much not be able to take the tape off, that the wires are just going to hold on to him. Now this is holding these guys in place in the back here a little bit more. That helps me out considerably. Now what I'm going to want to do here to get the curl in this corner, basically I'm putting pressure on it down here, so that way the only part of this that's going to change, and you could use your round nose if you wanted to make sure to get it precise, rather than doing it just by your fingers like we did at the top. There we go. And there's a decorative element that fills kind of the darker areas of that corner. And do the same over here. And when we tie these two together, they're going to be a little bit more symmetrical. So we'll just fold this guy down over the top. This is the long piece on the corner, and he needs to be up to the second long piece on the corner. This guy's on the second long piece of the corner, so that ought to do it. Go ahead and take this tape off. And let's go ahead and flatten this top again here. And I don't mind that that's actually flaring out on the sides a little bit. It gives it a little bit more of a decorative whimsy going on. There we are. It's going to look pretty nice. Now, I would like for, because of how this stone is shaped, I would like for that corner to be a little bit more up instead of in the back. So that's just going to be, because this guy's a little bit longer, I'm going to take him around and I'm going to use him to kind of fill in this corner to push him forward more. And then I can just sew him down pretty easily. That ought to, let's take a look in the front and see if that helped. Yeah, I think so. Now, because of how this stone is shaped, and you all saw that this end is taller than this end. It's pretty much kind of a, kind of like a platform shape. I don't know what that shape is. I can't think of it. So there's some more that we can do to the sides to try to get, create an illusion of that that's not the case. That it is actually a nice square shape, and I want this to probably end up being a little bit more elaborate than what we've got to this point. I'm just taking these guys, again, holding on to the very end of the wire, and bringing them around I'm trying to imitate this kind of fairy element that I got going on the sides. Then make them cut in. Like so. And of course, when I tie them together, that'll give me a little bit more room to reposition. But that looks pretty cool to me. A little different. A lot more, maybe, fairy fantasy. And that allows me to eventually come up with something that's going to hide that little end right there a little more than what it currently is. Especially if I get this guy tacked down. Or even just fold him over. Yeah. I think that'll end up working. So let's go ahead and actually start tacking a few things down so that way we can get this shaped a little bit more evenly and a little better. So when I get ready to tack this down, what I'm basically going to do, I'm taking my brass colored wire and I'm going to wrap it around one of these wires. I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to wrap it around at least 4 times. Just cut that tail out. There we go. And get myself a good length of wire. Cut that off. And now, get these where I want them to lay, so that way they look nice on the back. Always keep in mind that your back of your piece, at least try to make it look as appealing and as nice as the front of your piece. We can't always do it, but at least make an attempt. And now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this guy off, and by just wrapping him around one single wire, maybe. Yep. I'm going to at least do that about 3 to 4 times again. Now that is nice and secure, and I can adjust. As you can see, this side here is not nearly as big as this side over here. Well, because of how we've connected this, there's still plenty of room for this to slide around, but at least it'll end up in the place that I want it to end up in the end. So I'm going to bring it over a little bit and just kind of give this wire a tug. Fiddle around until you get it exactly the way you want it, if it's perfectly even, what have you. There we go. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and call this video here, and the next part of it, it's going to be a lot shorter. I'm hoping to keep it around 20 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I did off camera. All I did was go around and tack some of these areas down. By sewing and tacking this corner down, I don't have to worry about where he ends short, where this guy ended long, and I could even cut this guy to match on that side as well. And because this wire comes around, it helps block and keeps this guy over on its edge nice and safe from getting caught on things, and it kind of acts like a roll bar on a car there. And as far as this wire coming out of the back, that one's a new one. I went ahead and took this wire, cut off a fairly decent length here. That's about maybe 4 or 5 inches. You don't have to do nearly as much as what I did. I plan to incorporate it into the top here with these 2 guys and these 2 guys. But all I did was take a length of wire, and I just went ahead and curled it a little bit. And let's see if I can push forward there, y'all. That's all he is. I put it through the hole, so that way we can hide the hole, because it wouldn't be very appealing to look at. with that big old hole right in the middle of it, so we have to do something with it. So I went ahead and just put that through there, curled it so that way it ends right there, pull it nice and snug. I went ahead and took the rest of the weaving wire that I had on the back here, brought it down through here, and just went ahead and just used up the rest of it there. And so then I can just fold it upwards. You can even get a really cool effect sometimes. I'll show you. When you have that inner woven, oh, more like this, piece, and then you lay a solid piece of wire going down through it, you could even cut it off, curl it again, and make the two ends basically meet right in there if you want to. That is something that's entirely up to you, and that's another way to possibly end that wire. But I am going to make it come upwards, and from there we will, in the next video, I also did tack down these two guys so that way I can curl them and kind of fill in the rest of this this back area here, just make it look a little nicer. And then we will do that, move on to getting these guys going up this black cord and using this guy on the black cord as well. And then we will be pretty close to done, and I hope it won't be as long of a video. So this is like more like a 1.5, but you know, you can't put a half down. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Sharing helps me out tremendously. Also, if you'd like to help keep me in wire so that way I can keep teaching you guys how to do projects like this, even if you just donate $1 a month on Patreon, I am more than grateful for that. Otherwise, thanks for coming out. I hope you have a good one, guys. Bye.